This week on the podcast, 5 ways wishful thinking could damage your retirement. A little hope is good, but we want to make sure that we're also balancing that with logic and math. We'll get into that this week here on Phil's Tax Hacks and Other Retirement Facts. Welcome into Phil's Tax Hacks and Other Retirement Facts with CPA and personal financial specialist Phil Putney. Now let's get rolling with today's show. Hey everybody, welcome into the podcast. Phil Putney and I here talking about 5 ways wishful thinking might could damage our retirement if we get in the wrong direction of kind of, I hope this goes well, or if only this and this happens, things will be great. We want to make sure that we're not damaging ourselves along the way, Phil. So I got 5 out of probably a list of 400 that we can go through.
There's many, so.
But we'll keep it with just 5 this week and let you break them down for us. How you doing? You doing all right?
Doing good, doing good.
Very good, very good. It's middle of May already, or almost end of May already.
Getting ready for camping season. So.
I was going to say, yeah, cruising right along, getting ready to break out the old camper there.
Yep.
Hopefully wishful thinking that it'll be a good camping season, right?
That's right. That's right. Yeah. So wishful thinking is great, but hope isn't a plan, especially when you get into your finances. So.
This is very true. This is very true. Well, let's start off here with our first one. I'll spend less money once I retire because I won't be going to work and burning the gas and having the work lunches and, all the kinds of things we think about when we go to work. Well, to your point just a second ago, you're going camping maybe every couple of weekends, or you're going, whatever. I probably said this a million times
golf more or whatever. Yeah,
you're going to golf more.
Yeah.
My dad passed away early, and he wasn't in retirement very long. And I was younger, but one of the things he said that stuck out to me, and I probably said it a million times on here, is that he's like, man, it's great being retired. Every day is a Saturday. And I was like, yeah, that sounds like a lot of fun, especially when I was like 17 years old.
That's right. How do I get
there? He's like, but the problem is that I spend all my money on a Saturday, right? Well, if every day is a Saturday, you're spending more money in retirement. So this is an old myth, Phil. We've talked about this before, right? That we think we're going to spend less money in retirement. And we often don't.
Yeah. And this is the kind of at the core of any retirement plan is understanding, well, what is my spending going to be? And I mean, this is probably one of the biggest challenges that retirees I see face is number one, coming up with that number up front, but then kind of easing into that and really figuring out that in retirement. Mm-hmm. My recommendation always when I'm working with clients on this is do not underestimate. Because it's easy to say, I'm not going to this point, I'm not going to be, driving to work anymore. So we're going to get rid of one car, whatever it is. You're going to have all these expenses that are going to be cut. Mm-hmm. And, I only need half of the income that I have today. Well, a plan might work really well on half the income and you're going to have all this money left over at the end. But if the reality is, well, to your point, every day is a Saturday now, and I like to golf or I like to do all the, fish or whatever your hobby is.
Right.
All these other things that now you have extra expenses built in that you didn't have before because you now have time.
Very true.
So don't underestimate what you're going to need. Typically how we approach this with a client is...
I would think you would want to go above it, right?
Well, yes and no. So we look at where you're at today. That's where we start.
Okay.
And I come back to a tax return, and we'll have a client kind of give us an idea of what they think they're going to need. But then at the end of the day, we come back to the tax return and look at the last 2 to 3 years and say, okay, well, this is what you've had in the tax return. Here's your income. Mm-hmm. Here's the taxes you've paid minus Social Security, Medicare, state, local taxes, whatever you've paid, federal. Here's the net income that you've realized, net spendable income that you've had. Where did it go? Mm-hmm. And unless you can point to a bank account or an investment that I put X amount in this investment, I don't touch it. This isn't I'm building this fund to, pay my property taxes each year, that kind of thing.
Right.
Then you spent it, and that's often an eye opener to clients to realize I'm spending $100,000 a year. Where'd it go?
Where's
it's like, I can't, because when they do their budget, it's like, well, yeah, I think 70,000, that should be really good. I added up all the bills and that's what, okay, well, this is what the tax return says for the last 3 years.
It sounds good, but you spent 30
where did
more.
The extra 30,000 go?
Yeah, exactly.
And in that scenario, I'm going to encourage them to err towards the 100. Let's plan for the 100.
Yeah.
Because that is where you're at today. And most clients don't change their standard of living in retirement. It's, if anything, it might go up from there because all these extra things, or now they want to travel,
Yeah.
So on top of that, well, now you got time and you really like to travel. So you have to build in all these extra things. So
That's when my wife would turn to me and go, "What did you do?"
that's right.
All right, the next one on our list here, we kind of joked about this already. As a matter of fact, earlier in some episodes this month,
Yep.
I've gotten a nice return on my investments for whatever period of time. Okay, so I really liked my 12% that I got during 23 and 24's 22% S&P returns. So
Yeah,
if I
yeah.
could just get that every year, Phil, I'm going to be fine. And we use that as a joke quite often. Is that really a good plan, folks? If you're thinking about
Yeah.
that, as long as I get that certain thing every single year, I'll be okay. There's no room for error in that, like our
No.
episode we talked about the psychology of money.
And that's not even realistic. I mean, if you look at market average returns over time, 8, 9, 10%, you pick your number depending on the time frame you're in. But even pick like a 9% average return. Well, and I always tell clients, if you're earning more than 9% in any year, all you're doing is borrowing from future returns, because you're going to give some of that back at some point due to this concept of, average back to the mean, or, coming back to that mean, that average return.
Right.
Some years were well above it. Other years were going to be below it.
Well,
over time, it averages out.
Right.
So,
You might get lucky and go through the entire time of a strong bull run for 14 years, right? You could get lucky. Then again, you could also have retired in 2000 and
Right.
had 10 years of the lost decade. So, you can't bank on it.
reversion to the mean. That's what I was trying
Reversion to the means, yeah.
There you go. But yeah, so you don't get comfortable with having great returns and then expect that that's going to happen the whole retirement, because that's not realistic.
Right. Yep.
Because number one, with that, I mean, that is a more aggressive type of portfolio. The challenge you're going to face there is once you get into retirement and start spending, having that aggressive portfolio, when that turns back to the negative and that reversion to the mean, you get into that bear type of market.
Mm-hmm.
Well, now those negative returns when you're spending, because a sequence of returns, are going to dramatically reduce that portfolio pretty quick.
Yeah, to my point about if you retired with a certain number in 2000, the outcome 10 years later was totally different than if you retired in 1995 and with the same amount of money and retired in the 10 years later. Because
if you didn't have a strategy on how to manage that risk. So
exactly.
The Tax Smart Retiree is your comprehensive guide to mastering tax efficiency for a flourishing retirement. You will find indispensable advice and actionable strategies designed to enhance tax savings, maximize Social Security benefits, protect against market volatility, and develop a customized retirement plan. To get your free ebook, click the link in the show notes of today's episode and download your copy of the Tax Smart Retiree right now.
All right, so next one on our list, I'll just keep working if I need more money. Well, okay, cool. I mean, we could probably do that to a degree, right?
Right.
But, again, if the concept this week is wishful thinking. Are you going to be able to work? First of all, there's the physical standpoint. You're probably not going to get the same job that you had if you've already retired for a couple of years. Probably not going back to it, right? The likelihood is pretty slim. So again, be careful of the wishful thinking. Yes, you could continue to do some work. Nothing wrong with that.
And oftentimes this comes in if somebody's thinking of retiring early, I'm just done. I got to get out, and I can always go back if I need to. Well, to your point, yes and no. I mean, age discrimination is a real thing, as much as they want to say it's not out there, it is. And man, I've got
it's against the law, but it's easy enough to circumvent.
I got a funny story, true story with a client on that, where, he had lost his job and he had been looking, and he was, I was trying to think, he was probably in his late 50s at that point.
That's not old.
No, but he's not old.
Yeah,
but
I know.
Still,
I take offense to that.
He looked a little, so do I. He looked a little bit older than that because, he was a little overweight, graying. Sure. So he had looked for about a year, couldn't find anything. Had applied, got, up into the number 2 or 3 position and then didn't hear back. It's like, what's going on? Right. So he ended up losing some weight, changing his hairstyle, I think he had a mustache he shaved. He made some changes where he looked physically probably 10 years younger.
Okay.
He got a job.
Yeah.
It's like, okay, don't tell me that age discrimination isn't real. Here is a perfect example, because this is the same.
It would have been wild if he'd have gone back to the same place and gotten hired by one of those places. That would have been crazy, right?
Yeah.
then he would have really had a serious case, you know.
Yeah. But to your point here, I mean, don't count on going back to work.
Right.
To me, retirement means work is optional at this point. The going back to work in retirement, once you've retired, should be because I'm bored. I want something to do.
Right.
You know, I'm going to work at the golf course because I like the golf anyways, and it gives me some free green time, whatever it is. I get discounts at the pro shop, whatever it happens to be, you know. So
exactly.
That is in retirement, to me, my version of what work should be. Don't make work as a kind of a plan B in retirement that, if things aren't working out, I don't have enough, I'll just go back to work.
Right. Yeah, for sure. That's definitely not the way you want to break that down. Neither is this one. Right. So we had Mother's Day earlier this month.
Yep.
My sister was in town and my mom's like, you guys are going to gang up on me about, you know, getting older and making some choices and blah, blah, blah. and it was like, you know, so the concept of my kids will help me financially if I need it. And while, yes, we all want to pitch in and help our family where we can.
Yeah.
To me, this one's funny because this list of wishful thinking are things that clients, this is a list of stuff we've taken from actual people, right? But by the same token, this is on a list where on another list, a number one or a top concern from retirees is I don't want to be a burden to my kids.
My kids, yeah.
Right. And yet they also say, but my kids will help me if I need it. Yes, they will. But is that really what you want to do? That's just wishful thinking when you could plan, and maybe not have to hopefully worry about that problem.
Right. Well, and to me, where I've seen this come up before is that person that is trying to help their kids through college, right?
Yeah.
To their detriment in retirement. I want my son or daughter to come out of school without any debt. That is an awesome goal and very honorable. And I appreciate their goal and effort in doing that. But at the end of the day, if it puts you in detriment in your retirement where you might not have enough for retirement, and I've had clients actually say this, well, my kids are my retirement plan. I'm putting them through school. They're going to be a doctor and they're going to take care of me if I need it in retirement.
Yep.
Have you asked them about that? And the other thing is, even if you did, you're asking an 18-year-old or you're asking a 22-year-old that you're paying for everything today. What do you think they're going to say? It's hard to ask what that future person is going to be when they're married and have kids, and because that's the stage of life they're going to be in when all of a sudden maybe you need help. And to your point, yeah, I mean, they're probably not going to turn you down, but is that really the plan you want? So
very true.
So really think hard about that before you make that a plan and have that discussion with the kids to let them know up front.
Well, that's a big piece right there too, right? Do they know this, right? So
yeah, that's right.
Have they been informed? And then the final one, Phil, is I can easily downsize and free up some money if need be. Well, if you've been looking at the housing market at all for the last couple of years, you know that might not be the case. Downsizing, you might be spending the exact same amount of money in the house that you're already in or more.
Yep.
So,
yeah, I mean, this is something we look at very often in a plan with a client is, they've got the colonial that they've raised the kids in and, they're getting to that stage where, I'd really like to get rid of those stairs and be on one level, go to a ranch.
Right.
And, they're selling their house. They can't believe all the money they've made on this house, but they've been in it for 25 years. And in Michigan, at least, we have the what they call the Headley Act, where property tax base, the taxable value can only go up at a certain level. It doesn't get reset to current market value.
Oh, okay.
So now you're going to sell today and you might sell for $400,000 and you're going to buy, a $300,000 condo. Well, your property taxes on that $300,000 condo are probably double what you're paying on the colonial, just because of how this property tax valuation works in Michigan.
Yeah.
And there's just all these other factors that come into play of, we're going to a condo. So now you have the association dues and everything else that relates to that. So not to say this isn't the right decision, but
right.
When you're looking at it, don't count on that. Oh, I can always grab the equity from my house if I need it.
Oh,
Possibly,
no. I mean, my wife and I are doing that right now. It's like, we got this house for a steal in 2016. But there's some things where I'm, kind of thinking, well, maybe we should be thinking about this.
Yep.
And when I'm looking around for something of equal, or even close to what I have here, I can't touch it and part of me is like, I can't spend that amount of money, not because we can't, but because it's like, there's like this trigger in my brain that go, I got all of this for this price. Why would I pay twice as much for the same exact thing someplace else, right? So
Yep.
there's that mental thing as well, because the housing market is, we've seen what's happened in the last couple of years. It's gotten pretty
Right.
nutty. So yeah, again, I guess wishful thinking, right? To just kind of assume that things that maybe we've been able to do for a number of years could kind of go into play. Should something happen? So have a
Right.
strategy and a plan versus wishful thinking. I think you started off by saying hope's not an option, right?
Right.
Hope's not a strategy.
Hope's not a plan. I mean,
Yeah.
it's hope is great, but
Sure.
don't run the numbers. I mean, this is where,
Right.
as an advisor, I can help in this exact scenario, of downsizing, and that scenario for a client is something we do all the time, where let's run the numbers, go
Yeah, sure.
look, find some options, show me what you're looking at buying. Let's get some realistic numbers on it. And then let's run the plan to see what it looks like. Does it
Right.
still work,
Yep.
in that scenario, or does it not work? And now you have to, maybe look at another option. So,
And at least you have the data, if nothing else.
right.
Right.
And,
So-
and that's my goal as the advisor. And I tell clients this often when we're doing this, even up front, it's like, it's not my plan, it's yours. My
Yep.
goal in this isn't to tell you what to do. My goal is to show you the options. Here's option A and B, pros and cons, so that now you can make an informed decision. You know the numbers, the pros and cons in each side of it, and relates to all the different factors, Social Security, Roth, all these different decisions you're making. This is just one of them. But now you can make that informed decision, not just an emotional decision.
Yeah, exactly. I like to say all the time, Phil's not the money police. He's just here to say, here's the stuff. Do what you need to do.
It's your
but-
money. I'm like,
Right.
I'm not standing between you and your money, but
Right.
I don't want you to come back to me in 10 years and say, why didn't you tell me?
Right, but it's your ethical and moral
It's
and
my ethical
responsible goal to
responsibility.
do that. Right, to
Right.
go, hey, here's X, Y, and Z.
I wouldn't recommend you do this, and this is
I would,
why.
right, and this is why. Yeah.
But hey, it's your plan, it's your money at the end of the day. Tell me what you want to do.
Yep, exactly. So if you need some help and you're worried about just hoping for a strategy or wishful thinking or whatever the case might be, get yourself some time with a qualified financial professional like Phil. He's a CPA and a personal financial specialist, helping people, many families through the years for 30 plus years, get 2 and 3 retirement. So reach out to him. All the links are in the descriptions below, and that way you can get some time onto his calendar. The phone number's been on the screen as well. If you'd like to call him, that's also in the descriptions as well. So just reach out to a qualified pro, and we'll see you next time here on Phil's Tax Hacks and Other Retirement Facts. Don't forget to subscribe to us on YouTube. We'll catch you later.
Investment advisory services offered through AFS Wealth Management. The content of this program is provided for informational purposes only and is not a solicitation or recommendation of any investment strategy. Investments and/or investment strategies involve risk, including the possible loss of principal. There is no assurance that any investment strategy will achieve its objectives.